Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku receives a suicide letter from Toga and saves her, Deku x Toga x Mina x Tooru movie. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, LilBlue20, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's begin the video. Breathe. In and out. Repeat. Sterile white tiles pattern the small bathroom floor. Symmetrical hexagonal shapes covering every square inch. A tiny drop of red in the center. A splotch of Arabic crimson clashing against an almost alabaster white. Breathe. In and out. Repeat. The razor felt sticky. The crimson liquid dried quickly against the metallic surface. The hand holding was shaky and numb. Dull golden eyes examine every fine structure of each cut, the small unhinged smile at the sight of red blood. There was a point of dull satisfaction. A sense of relief caused by the self-mutilation. For a long time it's the color she's only known to. Maybe it's the way her quirk required it. The psychological effect of extremely violent behavior, mood swings, and bipolar tantrums. The oh so blessed fucking bipolar episodes. The small sink was covered in blood now. The reflection in the mirror is a truly disgusting sight. The usual bun style is gone, letting blonde hair flow freely to her shoulders. Clumps of hair matted to her face from sweat and tears. The enlarged canine scraped and pierced her lips. More crimson into the small dainty sink. The eyes that were mostly sharp now dull, and the longer the eyes started back at her the more her stomach turned. A feeling of bile in the back of her dry throat. The blood flowing from her wrist kept pooling into the sink. The cuts once thought shallow are deeper. A hiss escaping her lips. She knew she cut too deep, but what was the point in caring? The voices in her head are now silent, but the dizziness still came. The knees buckled, and finally her body collapsed to the floor. The sink is now almost overflowing with her blood. Breathe. Accept. Repeat. 2 weeks ago she left the league. It was spontaneous and quick, only being sure to leave an apology letter for twice and Dobby. There was one thing about being crazy that most people were afraid of: the unpredictability of the mind. Maybe it was when her subconscious finally appeared. Maybe when all the depression and anxiety finally kicked in when she held a knife. Maybe the danger of nearly dying caused a shift in her being, her very soul to crumble due to all her actions. Ironic really, at the thought of blood made her happy. The half-lidded eyes gazed down at the blood staining the floor. The blood that was hers. It looked ugly. Breathe. Accept. Repent. Memories of her family flowed through her hazy mind. Memories of her parents before her quirk manifested. The smile on the face of her beautiful mother turned and morphing into a look of disgust. The eyes of every person she killed flooded into the deepest crevice of guilt and shame. It wasn't her fault. The quirk made it worse. Shallow breaths leaving her chest like a fish gasping for air. A cold numbness encasing her body as dread finally seeped into her veins. This is it. The memory of green fluffy hair appeared. Emerald eyes and a genuine smile upon a freckled face. Bitter tears seeping through the corners of her eyes. Maybe in another life we could have been friends, maybe more. The final words are written in a letter to Izuku Midoriya. The last and final words she wanted to say. Accept. Repent. Regret. The world was dead around her. A black void swallowing her deeper and deeper to nothingness. Accept. Repent. Death. The last thing she saw before the void was beautiful green eyes. And nothing. The clean one's hands required vigorous lathering, scrubbing, and a bunch of soap. And bleach. It was a common routine after every use of her quirk. The ability to create acid was unique and versatile. Even if it required certain setbacks like making sure to always not let people eat after you, excessive control both physically and emotionally, and of course a constant if not compulsive need for cleanliness. Even if her personality seemed scattered and her room a mess. The thought of personal hygiene was a must. Always required. The bubbly and energetic persona holding on to a deeper self-conscious being. The pretending and faux confidence making her well unbreakable to even the very observation of her teachers and peers. And the pills. The pills always helped. Prozac mostly, and if not anything to calm her nerves. The winning edge, so to speak, if her nerves actually failed her. Finally drying off her hand, she reached for a little plastic bag carrying a few little white pills. Gulping one down swiftly, she glanced at her appearance in the mirror. What a monster. She looks like a demon. Freak. A fake smile covered her face as she left the restroom, unaware of the cracks in her mask as she walked away. Appearance was everything. From the way you hold yourself to how you act. Image in a way showed the type of character you were. Considering no one actually knew what she looked like made it even harder for her to stand out. She made up for it in cute outfits and being the girly girl of the class. Though the world couldn't see her, she still could see herself. Contrary to the belief of her being the epiphany of a cute girl made her glad others really couldn't see her. Truth be told, she stayed invisible to avoid the truth. No one needed to see the real her. No one needed to see the pale complexion that was nearly white with patches of black spots in random areas. No one needed to see the purple hue of her lips and the shaped teeth she had. No one needed to see the hair that was long and obsidian black. The color unchanging no matter how many times she tried to dye it, and the oily texture it carried. No one really needed to see her completely black eyes that scared away everyone. It was better to be invisible than to be feared, and she knew that better than anyone. Every other girl was beautiful and blessed, and she envied every single one of them. The other perk of invisibility. No one sees the tears she sheds every time she feels inferior. That's why she wore cute outfits and kept up the bright girly attitude. To ensure no one saw the ugly truth. Irizuku. Or maybe Deku. I heard that one girl with a gravity quirk called you that. I really don't know how to really start this letter honestly, I'm kinda making it up as I go you know. I guess I wanna really say how amazing you really are. I saw how battered and broken you were when we abducted that angry explosion kid Baku something, and how much you kept on fighting with broken bones and covered in blood almost made me a little wet. Why did you keep fighting? Any one of us could have easily killed you out of all the Vanguard 3 murderers. Myself included. Was it pride of your power? The will to protect everyone? Or were you really the hero that needed to protect everybody? I envy them. Maybe if I had seen you before, if we went to the same school or even were neighbors, could you have been my hero lately? That's all I could think about. You are the hero. You're the knight in shining armor ready to save the day. Then there's me trying to thwart your every plan at every moment. Maybe we'd have this back and forth dance where you are my good and I'm your evil. Maybe you could have saved me from this path and I could have been on the same path as you, as long as I was by your side. I heard you were the hero Otaku. Believe it or not, I'm a villain Otaku. We have something in common we really could relate to. Your freckled face is so adorable when you're smiling. I'm sorry I'm putting too much hope into these words. I really shouldn't even be happy about what I'm saying. This isn't a weird stalking letter or anything like that. I mean, I already know where you live, but I'm not going to do anything to your mom. She seems really kind like you. My point is, this is a goodbye letter. By the time you read this, I'll either be far away or dead maybe. Depends honestly how your mind goes. Your mind is fascinating, intelligent, and strategic to a fault. I can tell everything you do is put into every thought you come up with it. Bet you have the top grades in your class. I may seem crazy, but truthfully I'm not. My quirk has drawbacks. My psychotic behavior and violent tendencies are all a part of my blood obsession craving. Could you imagine me never amounting to anything but a villain? The disappointing look you'd give me, or maybe disgust. No one needs me. My mother never wanted me. Neither did anyone else. Not the foster families. Not the orphanage. I want to be loved. I can't do this anymore. I'm not happy. Izuku, maybe this is gonna sound weird, but I love you. I love you because you're everything I always wanted. Everything I needed. You're everything I want to be. I think this is all I wanted to say to you. Maybe in another life we could have been more. Sincerely yours and only yours, Toga. P.S. I'm located at. I wasn't lying when I said I might be dead. It might be soon, maybe come see me one last time, only if you want to though. But please save me. Tears flowed down a pained freckled face. Emerald eyes stinging from an endless flow of tears. The letter was written sloppily. A few words marked out and rewritten compulsively. Despite that, he read every word completely for the third time. Dry wet spots from her own tears littered the small paper. The true meaning of this letter was obvious. She needed help. And she had asked him for it. Green lightning cackled across his body as he activated the full cowl. Without a word he leapt into the night. A trail of green energy tailing behind him. 4 squirts of hand sanitizer, a thorough face cleanser, and 100 squats later a certain Pincat was ready for bed. Just for the trouble, throw in an extra sleeping pill and half a Xanax, and she would be ready. Changing, she slipped into a black tank top with the word Acid Queen in bright pink letters and some short shorts for bed. Ping. Looking at her phone, she received a message from Tooru. Invisibligal. You up? Pinky, barely. What's up? Invisibligal. Can I come to your room? That's odd. A curious curve of her lip and she was typing again. Pinky? Yeah. A small knock was heard at her door. Mina, a silhouette of pink pajamas and a tightly held teddy bear, opening the door to her room. Hey, come on girl. Grabbing the girl, she brought her into her semi-messy room. Plopping down on the bed and motioning a spot for the invisible girl to sit. So what brings you to the fabulous lair of the alien queen herself? She struck a goofy pose that enticed a small giggle from the girl. I didn't feel like being alone, honestly. The small sagging of her shoulders squeezed the teddy bear closer to her chest. Something's wrong. What's wrong? Talk to your big sis. The girl was only a year younger than her, but she still treated her like a close sister. Engulfing the girl into a tight hug caused the other to relax slightly. Mina, do you ever feel unloved? The question was, for a better term, a complete dead-on bullseye. Yes. No, why do you say that? They had never had a conversation like this before, and to be honest it was kinda scary. You know how my quirk makes me invisible? A small whimper coming from the shaking girl. Oh Toru. Don't feel bad. I know there's a beautiful girl behind that invisible wall. The girl stiffened in her embrace, as small whimpers could be heard from her. Toru. The girl remained unresponsive as she let off a choking sob just to hold onto Mina tighter like her life depended on it. Soft whispers of comfort were reaching her ears, but the tears wouldn't stop. A few minutes later both parties laid unmoving. One violently crying and the other comforting. Just sleep in my room tonight, okay? Sleepovers weren't uncommon in the dorm just as long as it did not get out of hand. Don't want to deal with Commander Buzzkill after all. Is that okay? The wetness from her shirt is a small indication of tears. A bright smile erupts from her face as she snuggles the girl closer. Of course. You know I love it when you're around. Lifting the blanket over them, she snuggled the girl closer as she could. An almost protective nature coming over her. Hey Mina. Yeah? I lied. The questionable brow was raised as she looked down at the girl she was holding. About. My quirk. I can turn it off. That got her very curious, but she could still tell the latter was upset. The complete body language of her best friend telling her everything she needed. And I'm not beautiful. You know I have pink skin and I have horns, right? She deadpanned and the other held in a fit of giggles. Yeah, but you're still pretty. What do you look like? Silence. I'll show you one day. Silence again as even breathing was heard through the room. Damn it. Mina started at the ceiling for at least 2 hours before shifting her eyes to her desk holding her pill bottles. I forgot to take them. Sighing, she closed her eyes to wake her asleep. An hour later she was out as tears slid down her face, pulling towards her in her sleep. Both broken girls seek the light to fix them and make them whole again. The streets of the city glowed with lights from buildings, pedestrians roaming to get into the nightlife. Even in this quirk-based society, the use of drugs still made an all-time high through criminal organizations. Some prefectures had a higher rate of drug usage than most. Low-level villains or thugs made easier money this way, distributing through smaller parts undetected. The real kicker to this was that quirks helped certain drugs. Since 80s society was quirk-based, half the time certain drugs wouldn't work with specific quirks. That I'm term up the anticipation of more dangerous usage of narcotics, methamphetamine, and even prescribed opioids. Jumping from roof to roof made the transit to the destination on the letter easier. Surprisingly or not, it was 30 minutes away from the designated area of UA. That's probably why I got the letter so quickly. With 15% of full cowl activated, he could reach the area in less than 10 minutes. The view of an old torn-up apartment complex flashed up ahead and he easily reached the destination. Stopping in front of the 6-story building, the adrenaline from his actions causes a small pit of anxiety and panic to manifest within him. What if it's a trap? What if the League was inside the building waiting to ambush me? The scarred hand held the letter tightly as he looked over it again, tracing his fingers along every word methodically. Every syllable looked strained and focused but unclear. This was either due to making it look desperate or this was a real call for help. Thinking about the girl, he couldn't help but scowled at the crucial detail that she was a clever villain. Sure, albeit unhinged, she was intelligent and cunning. A very influential and infiltration type quirk to turn completely into another person, making it even more difficult. She snuck a letter into my room. She could have easily killed me then if she had gotten past the security. The thought was dreadful. Staying in the protective confines of UA, a simple villain was able to slip by entering the dorms without anyone noticing. To be more specific, entered his room unsuspectingly. But the quirk like that, she'd be the most helpful hero. Being able to slip by unnoticed while distracting or engaging in hostage situations. Maybe infiltrate buildings holding criminal meetings to subdue a target. Or maybe wait. Now's not the time for that. Shaking his head, he looked at the building once more before making up his mind. Honestly, what would All Might do? The pros and cons weighed out evenly. Was it the right decision or a faulty one? Well, no better time than now. Determination filled his eyes as he looked onward, walking through the front entrance, bracing himself for what's about to come. The complex was surprisingly cleaner on the inside. The walls are a shade of gray, reaching down separate corridors and a small lobby holding 2 elevators. Making his way to the elevator, he pressed the button for the 3rd floor. The letter said it was room 304 and he couldn't shake the feeling of that building in his stomach. Thorough scanning and analyzing every structure he walked past, noticing the lack of cameras and the emptiness of the front lobby. Then again, it's almost past midnight. Elevator doors opened, he stepped inside and waited for what was to come. This is it. His lips felt dry as he stared at the onyx-shaded door with the gold numbering of 304. He could turn around and call for help. He could go get back up and handle her if she attempted anything. He could. A small noise grabbed his attention. A thud and a barely heard gasp of pain was heard from behind the door. Blinking, his mind went haywire with panic and shock. Was she hurt? Was she being attacked? Slowly grasping the doorknob, he was surprised it was unlocked. Opening the door slightly, he was met with a simple bed, desk, TV, nightstand, and another door he presumed was the bathroom. His blood turned cold as he saw it. Blood seeped from underneath the bathroom door as he bolted for the door. Toga. His voice was frantic as he banged on the door loudly. No response. Putting his ear against the door, he listened for anything. There he heard shallow breaths and more blood pooling beneath his feet. Making a quick decision, he slammed against the door, forcing it open to a truly horrifying sight before him. There in the center of the bathroom laid Toga. Her usual buns were put down as her blonde hair went to her mid-shoulder. A gray sweat-soaked tank top clung to her form along with black shorts. The sink and floor were a mix of red and white as she lay there bleeding. Toga. Rushing, he held the girl in his arms, grabbing a towel to stop the blood flow on her wrist. Dull golden eyes locked onto his as color continued to drain from her face. "Izuku baby, you came." Her voice was raspy and hoarse. Her lips pale into a small playful grin. "Hold on. I'll get you to a hospital." Picking up the bleeding girl, he noticed how unbelievably skinny she looked. Her body weighed almost nothing as he cradled her close to his chest. Dashing off in a streak of green lightning, he knew the closest hospital was and begged for a certain person not to be there. The night shift was dull. A few stragglers here and there, but usually nothing out of the ordinary. A nurse inspected her freshly manicured nails a shade of red as she sighed ideally in boredom. The front entrance door burst open, shocking the nurse. Looking up, she saw a young teen with messy green hair wearing all black holding a girl covered in blood. His frantic eyes landed on hers as she saw tears about to burst from them. "I need help." He sat in the lobby as he stared at the wall with anxious impatience. His scarred hands were covered in her dried blood. Doctors came and got Toga, but they ushered him into the lobby. The nurse came out shortly, handing him a small towel and a cup of water. "If you may, I need you to fill out some paperwork for her. You made it here just in the nick of time before her body went into shock from blood loss," the nurse informed him. The anxiety he felt wasn't helping him as he stared at the paperwork. "There are other things besides the cuts on her wrist though. She's malnourished. She looked like she hadn't eaten in weeks. Also, there are bruises in certain areas of her body. Mostly her back and her lower regions," the nurse said solemnly, and his heart nearly stopped at that information. Bruises? What could have happened to her? Sensing the young man's sadness, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It will be okay, we have the best doctors helping her right now. She'll be fine." The nurse left with a genuine smile as he continued to stare at the paperwork. Adrenaline completely gone, he sat there in a daze. Pulling out his phone, it was now 2 a.m. and he knew what he had to do next. Though he didn't know if he should. "If I do this, it could lead to so many consequences, but I need to help her as much as I can." The sight of her hollow yellow eyes filled his vision. They were eyes that had lost hope for a future, and he knew them. Taking a shaky breath, he needed to do something. He is called All Might. To say the former symbol of peace was woken up in the middle of night from a phone call was not surprising. What was surprising was the practically frantic voice of his successor, and the muffled sounds of crying had him on high alert. "My boy, what's wrong?" he questioned pensively in a calm manner. All sleepy gone from his being. "I'm in the hospital, All Might, I don't know what to do." The pure angst of Midoriya's voice had gotten his full attention. Panic and dread filled him as he sat up from his bed. "I'm on my way." An eerie silence filled the lobby. The sounds of pen against paper the only indication that someone was in the lobby. A teen with messy green curls wearing all black. If you look closer, you can see bits of dark red against his skin. Blood. Her blood. No matter how hard he scrubbed his hands, he could still feel the sticky warmness against his palms. Memories of the bloody scene playing in his head over and over again. Her thin frame entered his mind. The noticeable bags under her eyes along with the faded color of her skin looking more pale than usual. The nurse said she had bruises down there. The thought of someone doing that to anybody made his blood boil. The girl was already broken and super fragile that she merely decided to end it all then and there. How long has that been going on? In a split second of anger, the pen snapped in half in his hand. Staring dully at the broken writing utensils, he placed the papers into a chair next to him, taking deep breaths to calm himself. "Izuku Midoriya?" a nurse spoke, gathering his attention. Standing up shakily, the nurse gave a bright smile. "How is she?" His voice felt hoarse and strained. The whole ordeal made his body feel numb. "Well, she's stable. We were able to stop bleeding and perform a blood transfusion rather quickly. She's sedated and resting now, so everything will be okay." The nurse spoke, making him go teary-eyed once again. "Thank you so much," he cried, bowing deeply. The nurse playfully ruffled the already messy locks of green hair, causing him to blush. "You can wait in her room if you like. We also have some spare clothes if you'd like to get out of those blood-soaked ones." She pointed at the blood-soaked hoodie. She handed him a plain black shirt. "She's in room 14B upstairs down, there's a bathroom, and on the opposite side, an elevator. She instructed, gaining a nod from the shy boy. Rushing to the restroom, the nurse's smile faltered slightly. "I wish you the best of luck, young man, she'll need you more than anyone else." With that, she walked down another corridor to her next patient. Getting as clean as he could, he made his way to her room, making sure to open the door quietly. Stepping inside, he looked at the prone body of the girl he found. The once villain that smiled at the sight of blood, now laying in the confines of a hospital bed with her arms bandaged up. Sitting in a chair by the bed, he couldn't help but stare at the sleeping face of the blonde. Some of her natural color came back, and she wasn't covered in sweat. Without thinking, he gently brushed a golden lock of hair from her cheek, lightly rubbing his thumb across her soft cheek. The action caused her to nudge closer into his palm, a soft smile coming across her lips. His own smile gracing his lips at the now semi-peaceful girl in front of him. "Midoriya?" a voice questioned. Looking up, he saw the lanky visage of All Might standing in the doorway with confusion on his brow. Looking back at Toga, he released his hand as a small whimper left the girl's lips. Walking to the door, he embraced his idol in a tight embrace as tears flowed from his eyes. "All Might, she almost died in my arms," he sobs, shocking the former hero. "Tell me everything." He stared into a cup of cold coffee as he processed all the information Midoriya provided. The crumbled letter in his hands as he read over its contents. "I'm sorry you had to see that, young Midoriya." He solemnly placed his hand gently on the boy's head. "Suicide from someone as young as her. She's nearly the age of all my students, Midoriya included. Even if this is the case, she's still a villain who committed crimes against the law," he stated, making the boy's eyes grow wide in worry. "But she left the league. And she nearly died," Midoriya shouted. Pinching the bridge of his nose, he looked at the determined boy in front of him. "My boy, there is no other way to say this, but either she's placed into a mental institution or she goes on trial for participating in the league." Every word completely destroys the hope in the young man's eyes. "Why didn't you contact Aizawa or me beforehand? This could have easily been a trap against you. What would have happened if it was?" The boy flinched lightly at this information, staring numbly at his red sneakers. "My body moved on its own. She called out to me all night. She needed my help. Is it wrong to help a person in need even if she's a villain?" The boy's green eyes started into his blue ones with conviction. "Just like how he proved himself at being a hero. I may know a way to help her. Not only is it risky, but if I help her, you will also be responsible if anything goes wrong. Not only will it be a challenge, but you could lose the trust of your peers and society if you do this. Are you willing to take responsibility like this upon your shoulders?" He knew the consequences, but the determination the young man was showing, he had already knew the answer. "Yes," the boy nearly shouted, scaring a nurse. He laughed as the boy muttered out a small apology. "You've opened up a new can of worms, young Midoriya. I hope you can handle this." Glancing at the clock, it read 5 am. With a sigh, he pulled out his phone, sending a quick text to Aizawa to see if he was awake. "So what do you have in mind?" Midoriya gave his idol a curious glance as the former gave a small smile. "Isn't it obvious? I'm gonna have young Toga enroll into the UA." The smile never left his face as the boy gave him a blank expression. "Huh?" The sleep was a blessing for one as cranky and as strict as Aizawa. He ran a tired hand through his hair as he made his way to his apartment complex. He had night patrol, and this one was rather quiet to the heroes charging. Being a teacher and a hero is a bit stressful. Is 35 too young to retire? His phone rang as he made his way to the door. Looking at his phone, the name Yagi appeared on the screen. A long groan left his lips as he answered the phone. "It's 5 am on a Monday. I have to be at the academy in 1 hour. So either someone's dying, you're dying, you discovered the whereabouts of the league, or there's a villain running rampant. If not, help me. I will personally haunt you with all the stress you're gonna kill me with." The tired man spoke bluntly and seriously. "Well, I have info on one league member or ex-league member. She's currently at the hospital right now with me and young Midoriya." The former spoke quickly, a slight stammer in his words. "You mentioned the problem child, so what else do I need to know that you're clearly holding back? And which member?" "Well, it's Toga and..." "Spit it out." The menacing look of his eyes as he glared holes into the empty walls of his apartment, his hair lifting into the air ominously. "I may have added another student to your class. A slight pause. Aizawa. You're putting a former villain into my classroom with students that she not only harmed, but the fact that she is a complete psychopath didn't cross your mind. The fury in his voice didn't quill as he held the phone tighter. Aizawa, she tried to commit suicide. I know what she has done, but she left the league on her own terms. Not only that, think of it as probation to keep an eye on her. She'll wear quirk inhibitors and she'll be kept very far away from any sharp object. So no harm will come to anybody. I'm taking a guess and saying the problem child wanted something along these lines. He curled his eyebrow as a fit of coughing was heard over the phone. Maybe. Fine, I'll take her when she's released, but so help me if she does anything out of line, I'm sending her ass straight to whatever dark and damn prison cell that would be willing to take her. Understand? He plopped down onto his couch as a black cat rubbed against his leg. Thank you. I know you won't regret it. I already do. Hanging up, he lifted the cat onto his chest, scratching the cat behind the ears. I'm too old for this shit, he mumbled. The cat meowed at this, making him smile gently. Beep. Rolling over groggily, Mina turned off her phone alarm and started exhaustingly at the ceiling. Why do I have a bad feeling I'm gonna hate today? She groaned, closing her eyes to try and get a few more minutes of sleep. A tingling sensation caused her eyes to slowly open to a plain white ceiling. Her throat felt dry and raspy. Her lips felt like absolutely jelly and had a migraine that even God couldn't fix. Raising her hand slowly to her forehead, she examined the bandaged wrist as memories flooded her subconscious. I'm alive. Trying to raise her other hand, she was met with resistance. Turning slowly, her golden eyes widened at the sight of green curls. There on the side of the hospital was Izuku Midoriya. The teen had somehow fallen asleep, holding her hand tightly in his. She blinked owlishly as she stared at his peaceful sleeping face. He saved me. A nauseating feeling settled in her stomach. He had found her. He had saved just like she was hoping he would do. He was her hero. He saw me. Her breathing hitched as sweat rolled down her face slowly. The beeping of a heart monitor picking speed as she started having panicked breath. He saw me, 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 he saw me. Izuku jolted awake as the hand he was holding was violently pulled from him. His eyes stared in horror as Toga's body violently thrashed and convulsed. A nurse ran along with a doctor as they scanned over the vitals and monitors. What happened? The doctor shouted as Izuku just focused on Toga. I didn't know she was sleeping, and then this. He watched in sick fascination as a nurse jabbed a needle in the girl's neck as her body went limp. Well, I don't know what caused it, but she had a severe seizure. The doctor explained that Izuku just watched her body as her chest rose normally again. Did you need some rest? I'll have a nurse bring me an extra bed so you can rest. The doctor spoke. His eyes were bloodshot from tears and the bags underneath his eyes spoke volumes of his lack of rest. Looking over, he saw a clock reading 6:45 a.m. All Might said he'd let Aizawa sensei know I'll be excused for the day, hopefully everything will be alright. Looking back at Toga, he had grasped her hand in his, gently holding it close to his forehead. I am here for you. He mumbled like a mantra, hoping it would soothe the girl subconsciously. Unbeknownst, this would only be the beginning of what's to come. Sunlight pierced the room as one super exhausted Mina shifted groggily in her stir to wake up. And the sun just fucking chilled today. Snuggling the pillow on her black-haired companion tighter, she tried drifting back to sleep. Wait. Black-haired. Peeking one eye open, she was met with slick long black hair. It had a slight reflection against the sunlight piercing from the blinds. Taking a curious move, she poked the obsidian hair to meet with a bone-like structure and a grumble. Mina went back to sleep, it's too early. The voice sounded like Toru. Mina's eyes widened a considerable amount as she now stared at the clearly visible form of her friend. Toru. I can see you. What? I can't see you. Turning slightly, Mina was met with wide pure black eyes and soft quivering purple lips. The skin is a pure white, almost ghostly pale, along with random splotches of black in certain areas. From a closer look, the hair reached her mid-back, being long and straight. Mina, what color are my eyes? The face of Toru contorted into one of pure disbelief. Black. Completely black. Mina stated matter-of-factly as she stared deeply into her obsidian orbs. Toru's face scrunched up as tears cascaded down her cheeks and her lips quivered. Sensing the distress of her friend, she held her close, trying to calm down the shorter girl. Do you think I'm disgusting now? Toru questioned shakily as she tried to hide her face from Mina. Girl, I'm pink with horns. Either I look like an alien or a cotton candy demon. Mina deadpanned. The girl paused from crying to laughing as she activated her quirk to turn invisible again. The cotton candy demon, really? Toru snickered as Mina shrugged with a smile. So this is what you were hiding? Mina questioned, a nod from the invisible girl. Sighing to herself, she looked to the side before speaking again. Sometimes I feel pretty insecure about my looks. The whole confidence thing I had to develop over time. Image going from completely normal girl to this overnight at the age of 4. Toru to this revealed herself again as small tears trickled from her eyes. I was picked on for a long time with kids usually calling me a monster. By the time I was ready for middle school, my family moved to a different area and I switched schools. Different schools meant different Mina. She shrugged, but her eyes took a faraway look in her eyes. Toru gently reached out her hand to stroke Mina's. This small display of affection makes the girl smile. You know you look beautiful in your own way. Mina spoke, making the girl smile shyly. Plus who knew you had great tits? She pointed out, making them both laugh, but a slight look of irritation crossed the Pinkette's face. I didn't think they'd be bigger than mine. Still, I don't want to show anybody this yet. Instead of a pink flush, a hint of violet purple spread across Toru's cheeks. Still have a crush on him, don't you? Mina smirked. The girl before her was an open book like no other. Sure, if you can't read her expression by voice, it is just as good. Well, it's hard when he gives off that smile. The girl giggled as she had that bubbly look on her face. Mina rolled her eyes at this, and she knew well who she was talking about. Midoriya Izuku. Toru has had a long time crush on the boy ever since the first day. Her quote towards the boy was like this. How can someone be cute and massive beefcake at the same time? After that, she's had a crush since then. Smiling, she picked up her to check her messages before looking at the time. Comically, her eyes expanded to the size of dinner plates. Mina. Toru, it's 9 a.m. The girl's face morphed into horror as she jumped from the bed. Aizawa-sensei is gonna kill us. Activating her quirk, she turned invisible once more and ran out the room as fast as she could. Jumping from her own bed, age scattered to put on her uniform. Without any in her uniform, she thanked whatever entity she could for her luck. Looking in the mirror and checking to see if everything was in order, she opened her desk drawer to the side of an empty pill bottle. Shit. I'm out already. Cursing to herself, she took a deep breath before checking her wallet. Seeing as she had no money left, she couldn't buy any more and cursed again. Hopefully he'll be willing to give me something, but if I had to do that again, I'll fucking puke. Taking a deep breath, she calmed her nerves before leaving her room. Please make this day better. To say Mina was on edge, it was an understatement. Not having anything was getting to her. The constant washing of her hands became vigorous and rough. Constantly reapplying hand sanitizer and the major clicking of her pen. The fact that Aizawa-sensei grilled her and Toru for being late didn't help her already anxious nerves. Not focusing, she swiftly sent a text as soon as Aizawa was distracted. Hey, I'm out. Asshole. Meet me during lunch. Same spot. She breathed a sigh of relief, but she still felt awful. The fact that she would have to do a favor bringing nausea to her stomach. Stealing her nerves, she tried to stay calm as possible. She was completely unaware of the worried looks of her friends. The bell for lunch rang as the class gathered their things and chattered amongst themselves. Mina saw her opportunity and quickly gathered her stuff to head for the door, but was stopped by a hand on her shoulder. Turning, she met the worried gaze of Ichako. Mina, are you okay? You don't look so good. The gravity user spoke clear concern over her features. Seeing this, Mina quickly pulled a mock-sick facade as she spoke to Ichako. Nah, don't really feel too good. I think I'll head over to the recovery girl's office and relax there a bit. To make the effect work, she coughed lightly into her hand. Oh, I'm sorry you must feel awful. Hook, line, and sinker. I'll be fine, so I'll see you later, okay? Taking her backpack, she made a beeline for the meeting spot. If she had paid more attention, she would have noticed a figure following her as soon as she left class. The meeting spot was in an empty equipment closet that the school hardly used unless major events. Slipping by unnoticed, she slipped into the closet to meet face to face with a smirking Tsuburaba. Well, what do I have the honor of doing for you, Pinky? He spoke with arrogance that made her teeth grind sharply. You know why I'm here. She seethed. He was always like this. He pulled a small baggie and an orange bottle holding 10 pills. All I have is a few black beauties and a couple of Dottie stated as he wiggled the baggie in front of her. Black Beauties was the street name for Adderall and knew they would do her good, but she could prolong to make them last longer. Reaching for the baggie, he lifted it above his head, waving his finger in a no manner. Money first and pills. You know the drill, Pinky. He touted. Clenching her fist, she stared hard at the ground. I don't have any money. Could you just spare me one for today, then I'll bring you back money. The desperation in her voice showed and he gained a sadistic grin. You know you could do something else to repay me. She knew what he was suggesting, but she put up a strong front. I am not giving you a fucking hand job again. The irritation was clear, though he didn't back down. Tell you what, I'll give both for the price of him. A blowjob would do just fine. The arrogant grin never leaves his face. You're a fucking asshole. She shouted, fist clenched tightly. You heard Pinky tell me how long have we been doing this now? He questioned, faking mock pain. Her anger dissipated as she looked hard at the ground. Since 8th grade, she has mumbled. Exactly, you know I've never cheated you out of anything. Besides what others have heard about your little problem, one of you a top student's a drug addict. The scandals that would ensure, and how would your friends look at you if they found out as well? She froze at the threat as her body became rigid as she stared at him in shock. You wouldn't do that, would you? The serious look in his eyes told the truth. This was blackmail now. I won't if you do this. Just bring money next time and I probably won't ask for something like this again. Maybe. She finished, making sure the message was across. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed to herself in the empty room. She punched the ground repeatedly over and over again till she felt them bleed. She thrashed and wailed on the ground until her throat hurt and she felt she could cry anymore. She cradled herself as she wept softly in the closet, wishing the shameful dirtiness would leave her. Outside the door, a figure leaned against the wall, crying her eyes out as well. She had stripped and followed Mina to see if she would be okay. Then she heard and saw everything. Her heart broke at seeing her best friend cry in anguish. Mina, I'm so sorry, she sobbed before running back to the dorm. The sky turned gray as the rain set the mood looming over the painful lives of many. Gazing out the window of the hospital bedroom, he watched the rain fall from the sky relentlessly. The clouds almost black, suggesting a fierce storm ahead. Checking his phone, the time being 5:25 p.m. Missing one full day of school led to a few text messages from a few worried classmates, especially from Lita, Achako, and surprisingly enough Tooru. She left the longest message with emoticons that couldn't help the genuine smile the invisible girl brought to his face. The boy hadn't slept since the apparent seizure panic attack Toga had earlier. The nurses brought food earlier that evening for both of them. It was left untouched as he sat by Toga's side the whole day. Unmoving as he held her smaller hand in his. The whole time he examined her features while rubbing his thumb against the back of her hand. For someone whose hands have probably shed so much, they're surprisingly soft. The longer he stared, the more he mused about the girl. What he believed to be her natural color came back. Her lips no longer pale but a lush pink. The bags originally under her eyes were gone. The rosy hue to her cheeks came back as well. She wasn't awake yet though. He wasn't religious by any means. His mother held most of her faith without pushing any belief onto him and respecting what he wanted. At this moment he couldn't help but pray. To ask for this one chance to help the girl he felt that was completely broken. His phone rang, dragging him from his thoughts. As the screen showed the name Hagakure, he answered slowly. Hello. Hey Midoriya-san, how are you? Her voice sounded raspy and he heard the sound of sniffles from the other side. She had been crying. I'm okay, are you? He didn't want to pry but he was conflicted about the way her tone was. The call was unexpected because they hardly ever talked over the phone. Yeah, I just wanted to check on you. Aizawa sensei said something about you having a family emergency. He made a mental note to thank his big time after the events of this. He also looked really angry and upset, so that made me worry even more. He cringed at that. Maybe I'll treat him to that cat cafe Hitachi told me about. Thank you for your concern. I really appreciate it. He paused, looking down at Toga. Just trying to be as supportive as I can be. You being there is probably a blessing enough. He heard her laugh lightly at that. You have no idea. Yeah. Hey Midoriya-san, can I ask you something personal? Her voice was quiet and he didn't expect the question. Sure, what's up? He didn't mean to but his voice pitched higher accidentally. How can you save someone who's struggling internally, like having trouble with something that's controlling them? He clicked his tongue as his mouth felt dry. This call was definitely gonna last longer than he anticipated, but that didn't matter. Is she struggling like how Toga is? He wasn't always bright, as he himself struggled before with self-worth. He hadn't forgotten not too long ago he was a quirkless nobody. Now he was a torchbearer for a quirk his idol had that nearly destroyed his body from the start. He would never admit he struggled just to avoid the burden of making people worried. That went for both All Might and his mom always. He had to be strong, even holding back everything in his own mind. Be there for them. Support them in every way possible. Make sure that they know they are worth it. That they are a blessing. That you care for them. To make sure they know that they can do anything they can be if they put their mind to it. That they can be more than what others think of them. He felt a small tear slide down his cheek. He was saying the words that someone should have said to him long ago. Subconsciously he held Toga's hand tighter, like holding it could bring her support. Thank you, Izuku-kun. She sounded like she was about to cry again, but she sounded a bit more pleasant than upset. It's no problem, sometimes we just need to hear those words, you know. A small smile graced his lips. Just one more thing. A stutter in her voice he picked up. Yeah? When you get back here I have to tell you something and show you something. she finished slowly as he raised his brow. Oh okay Hagakure-san. Toru please call me Toru and Izuku-kun. Yeah. Thank you for being my hero. She whispered and hung up. He heard it through and his face heated up at the phrase. What was that about? Sounds like someone confessed to you or something. Dumping Slidey looked down to half-lidded golden eyes looking up at him. Toga. She was awake and tears rushed down his face again as he held her hand tighter. Izuku baby who knew you were so affectionate. She teased but the full smile wasn't there, just a small curve of her lip. I was worried that he couldn't finish as he sobbed uncontrollably. Sensing his distress she gently lifted her hand to his green curls. The contact calmed him slightly. Shifting slowly upright she placed his head on her lap and ran her fingers slowly through his curly mane. The hair softer and fluffier than she could imagine. It's okay. I'm here. You saved me she whispered. She couldn't believe she was alive but she didn't fret about it right now. The light peeked through the storm and at that moment she couldn't have been more happier to have someone by her side. As soon as Toru hung up she squealed into her pillow. Her pale face gained a purple blush of pure embarrassment from her talk with Izuku. No time for that, first things first. To others she seemed like the sweetest girl. The type who didn't plot in petty revenge or the simple sweet satisfaction of getting back at a person. Then again how far can you know somebody without getting to really see them? After what she saw happen to Mina, she could only feel hatred towards the bastard doing that to her. The responsible thing to do would be to easily tell a teacher of his illegal act and be done with it. That implies exposing Mina though and ruining her chances of being a hero and possible expulsion. She couldn't let that happen, in fact she decided there was one possible action she could take without letting Mina's reputation take any damage. Stripping once more she activated her quirk leaving her room. She had a mission to accomplish after all. The Sate Tsuburaba was having a great day. The solitaire user was seated by a window ledge on the third floor, counting the money he had earned through the day. A small smile gracing his lips. UA being a partial gold mine for his little side business. Sure the guy wanted to be a hero, but money doesn't come in the training process. The apparent lie he told Mina only made him grin like a madman. He had said that to get a little something out of the pink slut, just to knock her down a peg. He had said the same thing to girl in general studies and she fucked him instead. Maybe I'll make Mina do that instead. Damn talk about 2 for 1 on a good day. He boasts with a laugh. The sky had cleared leaving behind puddles of rain and wet ground around the academy. The lights in the room turned off suddenly, making hide his money instantly. His eyes scanning over the room for anybody. Hey. Guys this isn't funny, quit dicking around. He shouted as he scanned over the room once more, the only source of light being the window. He responded from within the room as he turned with his back fully against the window. Taking a deep breath of relief he chuckled to himself. Geez must be my imagination. Keep thinking that a voice whispered before Tsuburaba felt the odd sensation of falling. The last thing his panicked eyes saw was a pale ghost figure with pure black eyes smiling down at him before his vision turned black. Toru cringed at the sound the body made when it hit the ground. From this angle she could see his legs bent at an odd position as blood pulled to the side of his body and he twitches uncontrollably. She quickly activated her quirk as a student saw the body quickly gaining the attention of others as she heard the small sound of sirens. Seeing this, as her chance she ran back to the dorms as fast as possible. A dark smile gracing her lips as she practically skipped in her step. Mina had finally had the will to come back to the dorm. For a few minutes she stayed in the rain to get rid of the sticky sensation in her hair. The common area of the dorm was quiet and she sighed in relief. Not even going to her room first she made a beeline straight to the showers. Stripping, as fast as she could she pulled out the small baggie and quickly downed the white pill. She sighed in utter bliss at finally having what she needed. Making her way to the shower she turned the faucet on the highest warm setting. The near scalding water being a massive release of her stress and tension. Her eyes glazed over slightly as a euphoric sensation came over her body. A rather sultry smile gracing her lips as she lathered soap over her soft pink skin. Mina, is that you? A small voice she knew asked. She turned slightly to see the sight of visible Toru clad in a white towel. Her black hair damp from wetness clinging to her shoulders and upper back. Mina lost in a mild high smiled at the girl giving a playful wink. Care to join me? She purred playfully as she continued to wash her body. Though high or not she didn't expect the girl to cling tightly to her back, her arms wrapping around her slick waist. She felt 2 massive objects glide up against her wet back and she blushed knowing exactly what they were. I was just kidding. She nearly exclaimed, making the girl giggle. I just wanted to hug it all. She smiled, making Mina smile broadly as well. You wouldn't mind helping me wash my hair would you? Sweat from earlier made my hair all sticky. Mina lied but Toru knew that. Instead the girl grabbed a shampoo bottle and poured some onto the fluffy mane. She ran her fingers through Mina's hair in a comfortable silence. "Hey Mina." Toru started making the acid user open her eyes. "Yeah?" she questioned, peeking over to look at the smiling pale girl. "You've always been there for me. I just want you to know I'll be there for you. Always, no matter what. And when you saw who I really was, I was happy. You accepted me even if I come off as scary." The girl said, but Mina laughed. "Are you scared?" "As if. That's like saying it's hot." She gagged at mentioning the purple goblin, as both girls giggled. "I just want you to know I'm here for you too, and you can always tell me anything, okay?" she finished, as Mina gave a small sad smile. "I know, Toru." The duo showered in silence, unaware of the sudden set of events that ensured them. Events that'll change their lives for the better. To have hope is to have patience. Aizawa knew that phrase was full of shit. The amount of stress he felt the last 2 days only boiled to the point of tipping over. Not only does he have to deal with a possible rehabilitation of a former league member, but now an attempted suicide case amongst one of the students. Looking over the reports, the student's name was Kasate Tsuburaba. The kid's track record from previous schools show expulsion due to possession. Had they not looked at all the students' past reports? He made sure all of one was clean of any record of violations and juvenile records of criminal behavior. Though Bakugo's is questionable, even if he's got talent, the boy still is irrational and very violent. Rubbing his temple, he sighed to himself. "I've got to find a replacement for 1B and be able to fit Toga into this." His eyes burned from stress, one of the side effects besides dry eye that his quirk blessed him with. "Seems like you need a breather," quipped a voice whimsically. Looking over to the side, he saw the bare mouse form of the school principal Nezu. "I need a vacation, and for 1 day for these kids not to jump into trouble," he groaned. Seeing the frustration, Nezu gave a gentle smile, taking a sip from his tea. "Yes, not only do we have Tsuburaba's case, we have to deal with Toga as well," he said in thought. "Tell me, what do you think we can actually do for her?" he asked. Everyone believed in change for the girl. Truth be told, he's done this before, and he's not willing to let another criminal pass him by again. Well, not only does she have to have quirk inhibitors, she must have a probation officer, which is you. She has to have 4 students watching her at all cost as well. The bear mouse spoke nonchalantly. He groaned at this, knowing what that would tell. Midoriya is probably the only one who would be willing to watch over her. Who else would be willing to do that? Bakugo. He'd blow her to bits the moment she stepped on school grounds. Honestly, this was too complicated to deal with. Might you take some advice?" Nezu questioned his features. The reason Midoriya helped her wasn't just because of his heroic nature. I believe he wanted to save her because they have a common background. At this shout, his eyebrows shot up into his hairline. Similar backgrounds. If I recall, Midoriya isn't a fucking psychopath. He shot back, but Du only smiled. True, but they are both broken. Especially how Midoriya's previous behavior could be considered suicidal. It might not look like it, but in a perspective it's the underlying truth. He finished. Shouter remains quiet. He was right, but he wanted to look past that. He didn't even want to admit he glanced deeper into all of his students' backgrounds. Especially Shoto's domestic abuse and even Momo's parental neglect. The fact was, he didn't want to involve himself, it's too personal. "So who should I pick?" he questioned carefully. "Let them decide, it'll show you who we, as people, decide to look past." He finished before sipping the last bit of his tea. He thought about the riddle, just tapping his pen against the reports. It's gonna be one hell of a challenge. The news of the suicide of Kasate Tsuburaba spread like wildfire amongst the student body. None take it harder than Mina herself. To be fair, she didn't really care if he was dead, hell, she was kinda glad. The thought of having to find another supplier was causing her severe anxiety. Biting her nails, she stared at the little baggie in her hand. The more she looked at, the more it looked smaller and smaller to her. Resisting the urge, she bit her fingernails to somehow curb the craving of her usage. Frustration building as she threw the baggie inside her closet. Taking a deep breath, she repeated a sort of mantra to herself. "Make it last, you can do it, you're strong, you're strong, you're strong." Rubbing her arms, she laid on her bed, curling in on herself. Quiet mumbles the only sound in the room as she drifts to a dreamless sleep. The next day, class began. As usual, the students mourned their loss but had to continue onward. Izuku felt nervous most of all. Though he was saddened by the loss, he really didn't know the guy well. In his opinion, he felt like the guy was sorta like a bully back in middle school. "Deku, you're back," a bubbly voice shouted. Looking up, he saw the cheerful faces of Ichako and Lita waiting for him inside the classroom. "Is everything alright, Midoriya-san?" Having to come back after a family emergency to this could damper someone's mental state. The robotic form of Lita, as he spoke with care but with a matter-of-fact tone. Seeing both of his best friends, he smiled fondly at their caring natures. "Your seats now, we have a lot of things to discuss." The authoritarian voice of Aizawa spoke. the mood conveying he was in no mood for any excuses. Scattering to their seats, a thick tension built in the room, making a few sweat from the pressure. First we had a loss. I know you all are in a state of disbelief, but these things happen. Even in stressful jobs like heroics, people can't handle the pressure, he stated. Out in the corner, Tooru shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Furthermore, we will also be getting a new student at this, a few exclaimed in disbelief. Activating his quirk, the class quiets down quickly. I know this is sudden. It's actually more complicated than it looks. Raising a cautious hand, Achako spoke softly. Who is that we're getting? Aizawa paused, knowing the words he was about to say will affect the course of the students. Due to a serious event. A former villain will be sent to join you all in an attempt at rehabilitation and probation. The class froze at this. What the fuck? Breaking the ice was no other than Dot. The blonde nearly flipped his desk in rage. This is bullshit on so many levels. He seethed, sparks igniting near his hands. What's the person's name, Kiro? Sayu questioned. Though she didn't show it, she was scared of being close to a possible criminal. Toga Himiko. The name caused all the class to roar in frustration, except for Izuku, who was panicking. Why? Do you have no idea what that psycho nearly did to me? The outburst from a very angry Achako. Who would let a former league member into our school? A very scared Mineta shouted. Calm down. It is not up for debate. Aizawa yelled, slamming his fist into a now dented marker board. This action caused everyone to flinch at the anger the teacher was displaying. As a deal, she's giving us information on the league's whereabouts. As for the ones who suggested this was All Might and Midoriya. Aizawa finished as the class went dead, all eyes looking at Izuku in complete shock. Deku, you wouldn't tear up in Achako's eyes. The brunette rushed from her seat and left the classroom. Wait, Achako-chan. He reached out to her before he was violently shoved by a rather pissed Bakugo. Hacha, he didn't finish as Fist violently punched him in the face. Seeing this, Aizawa, Kirishima and Lita pried the angry blonde from Izuku. The black eye is clearly evident from his anger. Out of all the fucking people. Deku, you should have known better. You let the crazy bitch who kidnapped me into this school. What's wrong with you? He shouted while marching out the class, as well along with Kirishima and Dot. Izuku looked at his other friends, as some held disapproving looks and some of anger. The one being the most heartbreaking was Dot, a look of pure disappointment across his face. Class is dismissed for the rest of the day. You all may return to the dormitories for the rest of the day. Aizawa sighed. At this, the rest of the class just left, leaving only Aizawa, Izuku and Tooru. Seeing the boy still on the ground, she ran to him in worry. Izuku-kun, are you okay? She was confused by the news, but there was no way to treat it. I don't know really what he started, as tears began building in his eyes. He felt numb seeing all the faces of his friends walk away from him. A small sense of betrayal made him cry in anguish. The only source of comfort being the arms of Tooru as she held the crying boy. The world, as he knew it, was divided, and he knew the price he had to pay. Hospitals had an unusual sensation for giving off an oppressive feeling. The confines of the hospital room felt dull and barren. Nurses and doctors coming in and out of the room, checking her progress or simply giving her the required medicine. She remained stoic as they tried to get her to communicate with simple small talk or questions if she was feeling any discomfort. Hospitals brought discomfort. Though she did flinch when needles were brought out to take small samples of her own blood. The one thing that confused her was the weird synopsis of her mind. Funny how she loved blood but hated her own blood. Drifting back to within herself, she kept thinking about Izuku. The bright smile and genuine tears he cried, and for her of all people. You wouldn't cry if you knew what else happened to me, Aizu. Shame and bitterness filled her core. Her body felt not only dirty, but even more disgusted with herself for what she did. The bruises were probably still profound and evident. The proof and what else happened that night. The door opened up, grabbing her attention, and a skeletal blonde man walked into the room wearing a golden suit. Miss Himiko, I'm glad to see you are awake. The man spoke. His sunken eyes made her feel unnerved but safe for some strange reason. My name is Yagi Toshinori. I'm All Might's personal assistant. He spoke with mild caution as the blonde girl gave him a strange look. The personal assistant comes to my room before cops or even a hero. Is that really sketchy, don't you think? She spoke with a slight spark of anger in her eyes. Subconsciously she held the sheets tighter as she looked at the man. True, but I'm the one young Midoriya spoke with about your incident. He spoke slowly, making Toga tense even more. Taking her silence, he continued to speak. And Miss Himiko, I'm here to not only talk to you about the events that lead to this, I'm here to make an offer out to you if you chose so. He finished, waiting for her to understand what he fully meant. What's the offer? Her voice low and almost venomous to a point Yagi had flinched almost. Well, for starters, young Midoriya wishes for you to get better and well doesn't want you thrust into some loony bin or prison locked away for the rest of your life, so what I'm about to offer is a curve for rehabilitation. If you choose the offer, the requirements are minimum. She nodded at his words. First, we would like any information you have on the League for one. At this, the girl gave him a look. They must stop you there. Even if I could tell you anything, I know absolutely no whereabouts, plans or anything of that nature. The only time they needed me, a portal showed up. You can't exactly trust a psycho with your location, you know. At this, she gave a small hollow laugh. I see. Well, either way, there are still things you have to follow. You will have to wear quirk inhibitors and be stripped of any sharp objects within a 10-meter range. Figures, she mumbled. You have to go to therapy 3 times a week and take prescription medication for depression and your case of psychotic tendencies. If you don't take the pills, it's a strike against you. He warned, getting another nod from the girl. Lastly, you are required to go to UA. The hell? She cut him off, giving him an indescribable look. Yes, that's just a way we can fully keep an eye on you. You will have 4 student guides, with young Midoriya being one of them, and your probation officer will be an Eraserhead. He finished, making the girl relax a little in the confines of her bed. She thought hard about all of the information given to her. It would be no different than being a caged animal for me, but I get to be with Aizu. Her mind thinking of the boy that not only saved her life, but the one who she had loved and admired greatly. If I agree, what happens after? Did they expect her to go to school and automatically get better? To get her to be nicer than what? Throw her in jail afterwards? Realistically, this is a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Afterwards, you could do anything. You can be helpful to society and be an upstanding point if you agree to a second chance. A really rare second chance. You are not alone in this, as well. Young Midoriya is taking major responsibility over you if you choose this. If you fail or go your old ways, it's all on him. Yagi looked hard at Toga as she felt conflicted by his words. It was a double-edged sword for her. I get to be Aizu and have a life, but if I go back, it's all on him. A second chance to have a normal teenage life or ruin the trust of the only person that cared for her. I'll do it for Izuku. He spoke finally. At this, Yagi smiled to himself. I hope you're both ready for the road ahead of you. It won't be an easy one. Good, your transfer will be within the next day or so. Eraserhead will be telling the class the news of your arrival, as of now. As soon as he said that, his phone rang. It was Aizawa. Great timing. Excuse me, I must take this. He left the room, giving Toga more time to think to herself. Looking down at her palms, a very bitter tear slid from her eye. Please Aizu, please don't give up on me. She promised herself she wouldn't fail, but she made a promise like that before. I'll do this for you. Hello? Yagi questioned as he answered his phone. Did you want the bad, the extremely bad, or the shitty news? A gruff, tired voice asked from the other end. I guess all of it. He spoke worriedly. If he's calling, it must be really bad. Well, I relayed the news to the class, as you can imagine how well that went. The annoyance was clearly evident in the man's voice. They're not only scared but furious at Midoriya for suggesting it. Bakugo was more physically about it than anything. Achako even left the class in tears. He said, as Yagi had a solemn look on his face. Midoriya didn't take it well. Right now Hagakure is comforting him as much as possible, but I think that really divided them. Is Hagakure going to be one of her guides? He questioned, getting a long sigh from the other end. Maybe, though I'm not sure. Hearing this, Yagi sighed himself at the situation at hand. At this rate, only teachers will be her guides along with young Midoriya. I do, however, would like to recommend someone if they agree to it though. Aizawa said, gaining the attention of the former hero. Who? He questioned with a cocked brow. Itachi Shinso. It doesn't really look that bad. Tooru said, looking over the swelling purple bruise that was under his eye. They sat in the classroom for a few extra minutes to examine the damage Bakugo left on Izuku's right eye. Though the green-haired boy remained silent through most of the ordeal, he was eternally grateful for the caring girl before him. I still think we should see a recovering girl though. Just so you can look handsome again. Tooru attempted to lighten the mood. Izuku knew she was trying to make the situation less stressful, so he gave a lopsided grin. At least I'm not seeing her for broken bones, right? He joked about getting a fit of giggles from the girl. Right. So let's head there, and then we should find a way to relax. The rest of the class is probably just trying to get used to the situation. So let's give them space today. She suggested. The idea for Izuku was smart, even though he wanted to confront everyone. He couldn't do it now. Especially with how Achako and Bakugo reacted. That sounds like a good idea. By the way, you said you wanted to show me something, Toru-chan. He questioned, causing the girl to pause. Izuku-kun, you called me Toru-chan. I love it. And yes, I do, but later tonight, is that okay? She questioned a little deviously, making the to raise a suspicion eyebrow. Sure, that's fine. So I guess we should make our way to the nurse's office. He stuttered. Truly this had been the only time he had actually been alone with Toru. The girl being just a ball of energy, as Mina made him a bit happy it was her that stayed behind with him. Yep. The quicker we see her the faster we can go out. We can go to the park, maybe go watch a movie, ooh, shop for cute clothes. She squealed in delight. Her reasoning was really to keep Izuku distracted and out of his head, plus she would get to spend time with him, as well. He would probably be hating himself if I didn't do anything. Sounds good. He smiled shyly. Great, let's go. She yelled before the door opened to reveal a few unexpected visitors. There's the little troublemaker of 1A. Glad you're still here. Spoke the very overconfident voice of Monoma. He stood in the doorway along with a stoic Senator Kabara and a smirking Tageru Kamakiri. What brings you here, Monoma-san? Toru questioned, almost hiding behind a confused Izuku. Well, I just want to have a little chat with Midoriya-san. Monoma said, but his piercing blue eyes held a certain devious gleam. Maybe next time we kinda need to go see a recovery girl. Toru tried to reason. Right behind them from the shadows materialized a smirking Kororio. Izuku started to sweat a little as tension built in the air and was directed at him. Stepping from the doorway, Kamakiri stood to his full height, looming over Izuku and Toru with a feral grin. Activating his quirk, a blade extended from his forearm, pressing the edge against Izuku's right cheek, drawing a little blood. We just want to talk. He said with malicious glee in his eyes. Monoma stood right next to him as Kabara stood on the opposite side of Kamakiri. Guys, there's no need for this. Toru pleaded, holding Izuku close. The boy froze in place as they were completely surrounded. Oh? There is a major need for this. I just want to ask Midoriya-san a major question. Monoma spoke sickeningly sweet, sending chills down both their spines. Now Midoriya-san, are you the one who caused Suguraba's death? Monoma questioned. Upon hearing this, Toru froze in place as Izuku held a confused face. No. Why woo-ahh. A punch was sent into Izuku's gut as he clutched his stomach in pain. There is a villain coming to stain our school's reputation, and coincidentally a student dies not even a day before, and who of all people recommends this scum of all people? Monoma asked rhetorically before kneeing Izuku in the face, sending him to the ground. Izuku clutched his nose in pain as blood gushed from the now broken appendage as Toru stood frozen in place. You know, out of all people it had to be you. Trouble just follows you, doesn't it, Midoriya-san? I bet it's a huge burden on everyone. This though, I bet it crossed the line for 1A. Saying this, Monoma glanced at the downed Izuku with a soft grin. You are the most undeserving of this opportunity as a hero. He said before him, and the others left the room, leaving the duo behind once more. Blood soaking through Izuku's uniform as he held his broken nose, glanced over at Toru. Toru-chan? Izuku questioned slowly as the outline of the Toru figure started to become visible. Blinking, Toru shook her, gaining control of her quirk before looking at a slightly wide-eyed bloody Izuku. Did your quirk just? He didn't finish as he felt a finger placed across his lips. I'll explain later, okay? Her tone sounded scared and worried, but Izuku slowly nodded his head as Toru helped him up from the ground. They headed to Recovery Girl as both had a similar thought in their minds. What just happened? Breathe. In. Out. Breathe. Mina clutched her covers close to her as she physically shook underneath the warm blanket. Sweat clung to her forehead as eyes gazed at a now empty pill bottle on her desk. She took the last 2 Xanax she had. The bittersweet feeling being suppressed by her anxiety and fear of the events that happened today. The villain was gonna be a part of their class. And she was scared. She never felt this fear since she was little. It's because you know deep inside you're nothing but a worthless coward. The voice echoed in her head. No, I'm not, she whimpered weakly, holding the blanket closer to her body. Just a worthless whore who doesn't deserve to be a hero. Maybe if you were actually brave and smart you'd be a good hero. Stupid bitch. Sucking D for a few little pills. You just wanted the attention. Just a slut scared of the world like Dad always said. Please stop. She cried as tears slid down her soft pink cheeks. Yagi stared horrified as he looked at the rather stoic Toga. His throat dry as he tried to absorb the information that he just heard. His sunken eyes staring into Toga's dull yellow ones. Are you certain it was him? His voice was shaky and low, barely coming out as a whisper. She nodded numbly, not trusting her own voice, as she told Yagi about the night Izuku saved her. The night that the villain Toga Himiko was raped by a hero. Ever wondered when all the terrible shit you did would finally come back to bite you in the ass? Karma was indeed a bitch, and it had no deadline for anyone at all. Maybe it was that deep-rooted fascination with blood that made her break easily. The wrongful admiration of the bodily fluid that ran through her veins as she stared down at her pale hands. Yagi had left her to go and investigate her case. The room Izuku finding her in to hold any traces of evidence to pin a wannabe hero for the rape of Toga Himiko. How ironic. Her the villain, being raped by the hero. What insufferable plot design did she have in order to get this tragic backstory? The feeling of numbness was gone. Now the feeling of bitter rage settled into her stomach. The gut-wrenching anger of how vulnerable she had become. To let her guard down and let that hero try and help her. What a mad world it was. Lazy golden eyes looked past the frame of the evening sky as birds flew a vast empty blue. Only they know what true freedom is. Yet we are here with clipped wings. Anger turns into acceptance. She knew eventually this would happen, but now she could only look ahead. For Izuku, she mumbled, curling her body along the hospital bed. Burning bile left the contents of her stomach into the awake toilet she clung to. The morning's breakfast and the afternoon snack of a chocolate bar, all leaving her body, as practiced, clung to the lifeline known as the toilet. Sweaty pink hair clung to her forehead as she took shallow breaths to cool her already wrecked body. Spitting out the grotesque taste of stomach acid, she leaned against the cool surface of the wall to support herself. Karma. This was her karma. Dependent on drugs, fear and anxiety of everything, and a fake mask to hide it all. You have indeed asked for this. She thought wearily. Doing favors for pills, becoming a hero despite no one saving her from her own self-destruction. Who's gonna save a whore if you got nothing to offer? The voice of pure rage echoed through her subconscious. Flushing, she stood from the toilet and made her way over to the sink. Turning the faucet, she splashed cold water against her pink sweaty skin. Running the cool liquid through her fluffy pink mane to soothe any nerve she could ease out. Looking up, she stared into her reflection of the bathroom mirror. The bright pink skin that she loved dearly is now draining of its usual hue. The slight bags under her eyes due to lack of sleep and worry. Her black sclera becoming a lighter shade of black. She looked like she was fading away from the world. Almost death-like and pale, she needs to stop destroying her body. She needed help. You're a coward. She needed salvation. Freak. She needed this pain to end. She squinted a very thin eyebrow at the young man in front of her. Years of experience in the field of medics, and you've seen almost about everything. Every catastrophe, epidemic and war wouldn't cause her to flinch in the slightest. But a boy who broke his bones almost every time he used his quirk did. She would be angry, but the rather solemn look of the boy made her think twice. So you received a black eye, broken nose, and that gash on your cheek from training. At this, she pointed at the rather timid Tooru, who sat in the corner fidgeting in place. With her? She finally questioned after healing up his injuries. Yes, she's tougher than she looks. He himself had questioned out. It was a flawed excuse, but he couldn't tell her the full truth, not yet at least. Chio had seen it all. Yet Midoriya-san was the only case she couldn't fathom. How a boy can be so selfless, but also selfish as well. Clicking her tongue, she handed both Izuku and Toru gummies from her lab pocket before shushing out the door. I swear I'm too old for any of this, she muttered as she watched the two students leave. I pray that life doesn't destroy young kids like you. Turning back, she headed back to the teacher's lounge. Knowing full well she'd get an explanation from one sleeping bag-toting hero. Really? Training with me? She deadpanned as they walked through the halls. Izuku lightly touched the bandage along his cheek solemnly. Well, I can't exactly say I was bullied, not yet though, I don't have exact proof. He spoke honestly. He hated the fact he was lying to Recovery Girl, but he couldn't talk to her just yet. I understand, but I don't want that to happen again. She mumbled. The mood quickly became damp and awkward. You still want to go somewhere? I don't think staying here is a good idea. He tempted her cautiously. Like a balloon, she inflated with unknown energy as she jumped up excitedly. Yeah, let's go to a cafe. She cheered, grabbing his arm, leading him to the front entrance. A small grin plastered on his face as her regular attitude came back. So you got the gist of what's going on? A rather dull-eyed Aizawa questioned. This won't be easy. You might have to make tough call decisions and inherit the responsibility of another. She was a villain, but she is still dangerous. He continued, handing over a file with paperwork and a picture of Toga. Truthfully, I wouldn't have recommended you, but you're not only the best candidate. You have the quirk and requirements of handling the situation, so what do you say? Aizawa finished staring at the silent teen in front of him. Just as tired indigo eyes gleamed with interest as he stared at the file. He ran a hand through his purple hair, absorbing all the information. Smirking, he gave Aizawa an amused look. When do I start? The raspy, tired voice of Hitachi Shinso questioned. Hearing this, Aizawa grinned at himself. Effective immediately. Tolerance to pain was her only key to coping with her infatuation with blood. The constant need for the thick red substance was like an edged addiction that was worse than any method of self-destruction. Just imagine loving blood, then hating your own disgusting blood, and then the final nail in the coffin, being unable to see blood again because you have to change for the greater good. What a shitstorm. She placed a tentative hand against her cheek as a few nurses gave her once-over around her body, replacing any bandages and placing quirk inhibitors around her wrist. She could tell one of the nurses was shaking in fear of her very presence. The eyes of terror she used to love so much now give her a pang of guilt and heart. So these are the inhibitors. They look like silver bands. She joked lightly and gave the best non-threatening smile she could muster. The nurse still looked uneasy, but there was less tension in the air now. Well, we actually have different types depending on the situation. We're using these ones because they also like trackers too. They're small, but not too easy to remove at all. The nurse told her as she finished looking over at her. You're here for one more night till you get picked up in the morning, the nurse said before marching to the doorway. Standing there for a second, she turned towards Toga with unsure eyes. Tonight's pudding night. Would you like me to bring you some? The nurse questioned nervously. To the nurse's surprise, Toga gave her a soft smile. Chocolate if you have any, please. The nurses nodded and left her to her own thoughts once again, but they didn't feel as constricting now. Just one more night. If there was a topic of education that made Mina uncomfortable, it would have to be ethics. Once back in middle school, she had to take the elective class for an extra credit, but it also provided her with an easy grade as well. Also, it helped to have a class where she could relax after her mile high when she had needed her small fix. One day, however, the teacher had talked about an interesting topic. Existentialism. Prior to the subject of philosophy, she never knew what it meant. Right now, as she laid in her bed in a mess of her own sweat and grime. Right now, as she so desperately fought her slight fix. Right now, as she wanted to fade from existence and wither away in her bed, did she finally understand the horrible value she held for herself. She wanted to be a hero because no one in her family believed she could do it. She was the black sheep, yet here she was in a hero school. The plague of her addiction finally getting to her. Once we're clean, things will get better, things will get better, things will get better, she just prayed silently as her body spasms and twitches with every second that she had really hoped everything will be okay. This cafe is pretty nice. Izuku spoke as he focused all his attention on the menu, a very flustered hue reaching his cheeks. Toru had said that she had wanted to go to a cafe in order to brighten up the mood of the day. To be honest, he was even more thankful about her wanting to cheer him up. Naya. Do my masters want to order yet? A girl with cat ears and maid outfit questioned as Izuku nervously fidgeted in his seat. Out of all the places though, why a Nico maid cafe? Yes. Are you ready to order, Midoriya-san? Toru questioned. Izuku looked between her and the awaiting maid with a slight blush. Yes. He mumbled, and the Nico maid gave a brazen smile. Here, I'll start. May I have a strawberry parfait? Toru ordered as the maid wrote it down. And what for you, master? The maid questioned, looking at Izuku. I'll just have what she's having, he said, and the maid just nodded. All right. Coming up soon, masters, Nico said and left with a swoosh of her skirt. You shoulda said it was one of those cafes, he pouted as Toru gave a small giggle. What would be the fun in that? She giggled slightly at Izuku's pain. At least she's happy. I think this is probably the first time we've actually hung out. Just you and me. Toru started, making Izuku think for a second. She was of course right, as they barely had any other interactions besides texting. It felt extremely pleasant to actually be out as well, especially with everything going on. Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it? He smiled gently, making Toru blush lightly. She was also thankful for being in invisible mode right now, or she would have died of embarrassment. Still though, I have to tell him my secret. Midoriya-san, can I ask you a question? Toru wanted to know something more personal before she got into her own secrets. Yeah? He looked at her puzzled as she reached out her hand and grasped his cheek lightly. He didn't move as he felt soft fingers glide against his cheek gently. What do you think I would look like if I wasn't invisible right now? She questioned softly. Her insecurities began to show as his face contorted to a confused look. Well, to be honest, I thought about that before. I thought you'd look beautiful, he replied honestly with a small blush of his own. Toru paused for a minute, looking into his emerald green eyes for a moment for any signs of deception. She felt relieved when she saw none, but still. Why do you ask? He questioned as the maid from before brought them their orders. Midoriya-san, would you like to see the real me? She questioned as she grasped his hand in hers. There was a tone of urgency but conflict in her voice, but he didn't question it. His brain was in 1,000 thoughts per second at the question she asked. Could I really see her? Emerald eyes looked at her in curiosity, but looking at them gave her a sense of calmness that made her heart stop. Yes, I want to see you. He swallowed the slight lump in his throat as he began to get dragged away by Toru. After he had admitted to wanting to see her, they had both scarfed down their parfits in a rush. Izuku had swiftly paid the Nico maid before leaving, as Tooru began to pull him deeper into the city. If he was gonna be honest with himself, he was excited to know the end. It felt like he was gonna see something taboo or forbidden in a way when seeing Tooru's true form. Like a teenager walking past a porn section amongst a magazine stand, he could help the rabid beating of his heart. Tooru herself felt even more self-conscious as she dragged Izuku along through Musatafu. She was looking for a place private enough to show Izuku, but not so anyone else could see her. In fact, she knew exactly where she needed to go, but she prayed Izuku wouldn't freak out when they got there. Turning down a narrow street, she tried looking for specific signs. Another turn, and she led them down a very seedy-looking street to which Izuku has yet to notice yet. Neon signs hovered above their heads as they trudged deeper down the street. Here's perfect. She stopped automatically in front of a tall 4-story building with pink neon lights in the front. Love paradise. Izuku took one long look at the building before his mind could register where they were. They were standing in front of a love hotel. The Love Hotel. The place where simple innocents are lost. The place where innocent cinnamon rolls perish and become bad noodles. Izuku was caught off guard as an invisible finger was placed on his lips, stopping him from speaking. I know where we are, but we can exactly go back to the dorms right now just for a little bit, please. Her voice was softer than her usual happy-go-lucky one. It sounded foreign and new but vulnerable in every way. He imagined that she had a very uncomfortable look on her face, but if this is what she wanted, then who was he to judge? He just really hoped no one would recognize them. Entering the lobby, they both stared around at the rather over-chic decor. The walls were rose-red color, along with pictures of couples in various risque poses. At the counter stood a woman in early 40s. Her ruby red hair matched her suit along with the over-elongated nails on her fingers. Her hollow blue eyes stared deeply at the two before her ruby lips perked into a slight grin. Kinda young for this, huh? She spoke, lighting a cigarette in front of the two. Izuku stood uncomfortably, unable to say anything, but he didn't have to, as Toru stood up for him. We're just here to rest actually. We've had a long day and don't want to go back to dorms, plus a girl needs some privacy with her boyfriend, right? Toru spoke so naturally Izuku even believed her. He blushed at the word boyfriend, but the woman before them gave a hearty laugh as she handed a room key to Izuku. Tell you what, youth is important. So I'll give you guys 2 hours max and then you bring back the key, deal? The woman suggested. Izuku was about to speak, but Toru beat him to it again. Perfect. Let's go, babe. She dragged Izuku away, leaving the woman alone in the main lobby. She took a long drag of her cigarette as she watched the two disappear in the elevator. Youth full of energy and lies. She spoke to herself as she looked out into the lobby with a small smirk on her face. Still though, I wonder how this will go. The inside of the room was a lot nicer than what Izuku had imagined. A lot nicer than the room I found Toga in. He thoughts shifted towards the blonde as he sat on the edge of the bed. He wondered how things will go and how everyone is gonna feel about the whole situation. Rubbing his bruised eye, he remembered the pained looks on both Ichako and Kaken's faces. I really hope I made the right decision. Midoriya, he heard Toru whisper out. Turning, his eyes nearly bulged from his skull. Even though she was still invisible, she had discarded her blazer and tie, only leaving her in her white button-up with her skirt and knee socks. The first few buttons were undone, slowly showing the peaking of her pink bra. He was about to give a vocal response, but couldn't as she continued to strip off her clothing. Toru felt his eyes on her being, though her invisibility held through, her true form could literally scare him away. Her subconscious and her emotions coursed through her as she continued to toss away each article of clothing. She pulled her socks off slowly to prolong the inevitable, but once she put her mind to it, she couldn't stop. Couldn't stop her anxiety and fear, but she had to stay strong. Izuku's heart felt like it was now beating for a conga line. There Toru was in front of him, stripped of her clothes and only in her underwear. He swallowed thickly as small tension began to fill the room. I'm gonna take these off now, Toru whispered shyly as she unclasped her bra. Izuku absent-mindedly liked the pinkness of her bra and panties. It suits her personality. She slid her panties down her legs as she kicked them aside. The easy part was done. Next was the hard part. Using her hand, she pushed Izuku flatly against the bed, straddling his waist. She stared down at his shocked expression as he kept his hands to the side. He looked off to the side, making her slightly smile at his own nervousness. Are you ready for Izuku-kun? She whispered slightly as Izuku blushed at the name. Yes, Izuku spoke with slight excitement in his tone. Toru, seeing this, began to illuminate a small glow that swiftly blinded him for a second. Opening his eyes back up slowly, he was met with the sight of Toru's real form. His eyes widened slowly as he took all of her in. Her pure obsidian eyes stared down at him as her lips quivered. She had felt like curling up in a ball. Small tears began to build eyes, but a calloused hand reached up to caress her cheek. Izuku focused on her eyes fully as he gave her a concerned look. "Am I not ugly to you?" she said, visibly shaking as he had finally seen her real face. "You're more beautiful than I imagined." Izuku spoke honestly as he was entranced by her appearance. Her long black silky hair reached past her shoulder. Her pale skin was soft to the touch as he stared up at her. He didn't feel shy as he looked at her body with desire. Her chest rose slightly with each breath she took, making her chest bounce light with each movement. He was so tempted to touch her more, but he held on strong as he continued to stare deeply into her black orbs. "You don't have to be afraid of what you look like, you are beautiful, and no one can say otherwise." As he spoke, she leaned closer towards him with each word. Before he could speak again, her lips crashed down into his. Shock overtook him as she wrapped her arms around his head. "Let me enjoy this a little longer, please." The hooded man entered the same lobby as the two before, and the same woman had given the man a look. "Waiting on someone?" she questioned, placing another cigarette towards her lips. "Heard there were 2 little lost lambs here, know anything about that?" The hooded man began to speak, making his way closer to the woman. Before she could light her cigarette, the man outstretched his hand towards her as an azure flame engulfed the cigarette. The man looked into her scared blue eyes as she looked into deep azure eyes in fear as he inched closer towards her. "Sorry, but I'm in a rush." The man smiled sadistically as flames began to engulf the lobby. The end. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.